We're doing a deep dive today into a topic that, on the surface, might sound purely logistical.
Right.
They're talking about the renovation, high-level college athletic facilities, and specifically the locker room.
And you'd think, okay, it's about budget, finishes, getting the HVAC right, that kind of thing.
Exactly. But it turns out to be this powerful mechanism for strategic organizational change.
Yeah, that's what everyone assumes. But the material we've been looking at, the stuff compiled for facility planners, the key insight is almost entirely psychological and cultural.
Okay, so let's unpack that, because the core takeaway, and our sources are really, really insistent on this, is that you have to start with one simple question.
And it's a question that gets ignored all the time.
Right. Before you hire an architect, before you look at a single cabinet design, you must ask, what do we want this space to say?
That's it. That's the whole game. It establishes the vision. It's the cultural North Star for the project.
Not the budget.
Not the budget. If you jump straight to tile materials or budget lines, you might build something expensive and, functional, but it'll be completely disconnected from the culture you're trying to build.
So vision dictates design.
Vision dictates design, not the other way around. And for you listening, whether you run a college program or just a large team, this framework works.
I appreciate that distinction. It really moves it from a construction job to, I guess, a cultural intervention. But let's challenge the basic idea of the space itself. A locker room, for most people, is just utilitarian.
That's the assumption. You change, store gear, shower.
Yeah.
But what's fascinating is how the facility experts we reviewed have mapped this out. They see the locker room as a vital cultural artifact, a physical manifestation of the program's values.
So it's not just a utility space.
No, it's prime real estate for cultural reinforcement, and it works in 3 really critical ways.
Okay, so let's start with the one that probably drives the most investment. The 180s talk about first. Recruit impression.
Exactly. When a blue-chip recruit steps on campus, they're looking at 2 things: the people and the facilities. And the locker room is often the absolute first impression of the program's commitment.
So if a recruit sees something outdated, chipped, generic,
The immediate message, unspoken, is that the program is settling, that you're coasting on history, not investing in the athlete who's standing right in front of you.
It's the visual shorthand for how much do you value me?
Precisely. Now, if they walk into a space that reflects innovation, attention to detail, a performance focus, maybe dedicated recovery areas or personalized biometric stations,
That's a different story.
it's a concrete promise kept even before they sign. It tells them everything about the program's ambition.
And the second role is about the athlete's experience once they're actually in the program. This is the athlete mindset piece.
Right, so we move beyond recruitment and into daily function. The experts underscore that the locker room is a transition zone.
A transition zone, okay.
It's where pre-game focus starts. It's where an athlete shifts from the noise of campus life classes, media, to the intensity of competition. The design has to help with that mental shift.
So if the space is, cluttered, too loud, poorly lit, it's actually working against them.
It directly undermines that focus. Can I give you a tangible example?
Please.
Think about acoustics and flow. The best designs use materials like perforated wood ceilings, not just for looks, but to manage sound. They actively separate high-energy zones from quiet, reflective zones.
So you're minimizing stress, helping them concentrate.
Yes. And then after the game, win or lose, that's where the reflection happens. The environment needs to feel secure and stable to support that whole emotional cycle.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
The building isn't just holding them, it's helping them regulate their own psychology. Which brings us to number 3, program pride, the daily affirmation.
This is the quiet part, the daily communication. A well-designed, intentional space is a constant physical reminder of identity, of culture, of pride.
How so?
Well, if the program invests in high-quality materials, things designed for performance like proper locker ventilation, so your gear actually dries, or built-in nutrition stations, it tells the athlete every single day that their effort is valued. It's loyalty built right into the architecture.
And the sources are clear that this cultural conversation has to start now.
Immediately. Even if construction is 12 or 18 months away, defining what you want the space to say, that's step 1. That precedes everything.
Because if you wait for the capital to be allocated...
Then the decision is already made for you. It becomes about financial constraints, not strategic intent.
Okay, so that's the ideal.
Huh.
But let's talk about the reality for a lot of programs. The unintentional messages that old or decaying facilities are sending out right now. What do those negative stories sound like?
The materials are incredibly blunt about this. Visual neglect is a cultural shorthand, And it almost always says, you are not a priority.
Right. And the sources list a few specific phrases that come across. One is, we haven't touched this in 15 years.
Which signals that the past is more important than the present.
Or, and this one feels worse, we settled for good enough.
That's the antithesis of a competitive environment, isn't it? The whole idea is to find every tiny advantage. If the program is visibly settling on its environment, why should an athlete believe it isn't settling on coaching or nutrition?
And the last one is what the facility leaders call the procrastination message.
Ah, yes. We'll get to it when we have more time.
It's a failure to invest in the athlete's present experience.
Yeah,
That lack of urgency is just cultural poison.
it really is. These messages, complacency, neglect, they actively erode the confidence and pride we were just talking about. They force everyone to work around the facility instead of the facility working for them.
But this is where the conversation can shift, right? Let's contrast that with the impression made by a successful, well-planned space. They tell three powerful positive stories.
A complete flip of the script. The positive story starts with clarity. It says, we invest in our athletes, and it's backed up with durable, high-performance choices, not just flashy looks.
Like using sustainable materials, maybe?
Exactly. Adhering to LEED standards, things that signal a long-term commitment beyond just the next recruiting class.
The second positive story. This program has vision. This has to be huge for donors and alumni too, right?
Absolutely. A stunning, functional facility tells them leadership is thinking 5, 10 years down the road and can actually execute a complex plan. It makes a capital campaign feel like an investment in a mission, not just an expense.
And the third, and maybe the most resonant one for the athletes, is excellence shows up in the details.
Yes. This connects their own personal discipline to the bigger environment. If the coach is demanding perfection and the facility gives you a locker that organizes your gear perfectly, minimizing distraction, those two messages align. It shows seriousness, even in the mundane.
But I have to ask, isn't this all just feeding the facilities arms race? What about smaller schools that can't afford a $50 million locker room?
That's a great question, and the sources have a really good answer for it. They're clear.
Mhm.
You don't need to build tomorrow to start moving toward excellence today.
The conversation is free.
The conversation about vision is free. That's the cultural shift. Many successful projects actually start small. Maybe you upgrade the lighting, you fix the flow of the existing space, and you use that success to build momentum for the bigger fundraising plan. It's about cultural fit, not sheer scale.
That reframes the timeline, which brings us to the strategic planning part of this. If defining the vision is step one, when do smart leaders actually do it?
The facility planners we reviewed point to a very specific and often missed window of opportunity: December.
December. That seems like the most chaotic time. Bowl season, signing day, finals, holidays. Why then?
Because it's a pivot point. The sources call it a rare moment between seasons, between capital planning phases. The pressure of the current season has just lifted, but the intense demands of the next one haven't fully locked in yet. It's a temporary lull, a critical one.
So instead of just catching up on email, the smart ADs are using this window to hold a locker room vision session.
Yes, and this is where the whole process gets turned on its head. Instead of asking how much do we have to spend, they shift to what's possible. They ask two very proactive questions in this window.
The first one is, what should our space look like in 12 months?
Right, that's immediate actionable thinking.
And the second one?
The second one is, if we could start fresh, what would we create? You explore the unconstrained ideal first. You define excellence. Then, when budgets come in, you're making choices against a known ideal, not just building towards some vague ambition.
This is a huge process shift. The experts who do these builds, they don't start by showing catalogs or pitching products.
No, they demand these strategic answers first. They act as consultants for culture and identity first, and builders second. It's how you avoid problems like scope creep, where the project balloons because the initial vision was just never clear.
So they use three foundational questions to guide this session. Let's walk through those. The first one is the anchor we started with.
Sure.
What story do you want the space to tell?
And that clarifies the non-negotiables. Is the story blue-collar work ethic? That means rugged, functional, durable materials. Or is the story cutting-edge innovation? That means integrated tech, recovery zones, sophisticated aesthetics. The story determines the design.
Then they immediately ground that story in reality with the second question. What frustrations are athletes dealing with now?
Exactly. This forces the leadership to actually listen. Is the big complaint about poor air quality? That points to a ventilation upgrade. Is it a lack of privacy for studying? That points to acoustic paneling. You solve real pain points.
Which earns you buy-in.
Instant buy-in.
And the third question ties it all back to growth. How do we make this upgrade something your recruits talk about? For all the right reasons.
That question turns the facility into a strategic marketing tool, a living brochure. It forces you to think about impact and, just as importantly, the long-term cost of operating these high-end features. You're not just building it, you have to run it.
That is a phenomenal breakdown. The central learning here is that this whole process has to be intentional from day one. The best renovations don't start with a blueprint.
They start with a bold question and a clear, defined cultural vision. You're building culture, and you're using the fixtures to reinforce it. The structure is just the delivery mechanism for the psychological vision. It's an investment in your program's identity, not just in lumber and lighting.
Which leads us to a final provocative thought for you to take away. This whole idea, it extends so far beyond just college sports or physical buildings. Even if you're not planning a renovation, even if your work isn't tied to a physical space, you need to think about the nonverbal messaging you're sending.
Think about the implicit communication. What is your team, your department, implicitly saying to its own people and its new recruits through the things you haven't changed recently?
If you've left old systems in place for too long, if you've ignored obvious friction points, if you're just prioritizing inertia over innovation, is that silence, that neglect, speaking louder than any official mission statement you've written?
It's a powerful thought.
Because sometimes what you choose not to invest in is the clearest communication of all.